Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about Porsche supercars or the lack thereof. The past few years we saw a lot of concept cars coming from Porsche, but nothing coming to production, while Ferrari and McLaren are still at it, producing some really cool limited edition cars. But why is Porsche not releasing anything when they had so many cool concept cars? So that may have to do with all the European regulation that are coming out and also the different orientation in terms of where the sales of electric vehicle are coming. So we're going to talk about all those things and also in it speculate about what we think Porsche should produce next. So stay tuned and follow our conversation with Chris. I hope you enjoy like it. Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about more Porsche content and what happened to the Porsche supercar hypercars in the 2020s. Like everybody seems to be doing one. Ferrari, McLaren, Lamborghini is doing a bunch of one-off. Bugatti doing their supercar, of course, as usual. But Porsche has always been, at least for the past 3 decades, making supercars or hypercars, limited editions. And we haven't seen anything from them for a while now. So we wanted to talk about what is considered to be a Holy-Trinity of cars, which is the supercar from Porsche, Ferrari, and McLaren. The term really came about in the 2010, but I think it kind of all started in the 90s, with, at least for Porsche, with the 959. Very quickly after that, we had the F40 and the McLaren F1. So those cars were just so amazing. They really became a symbol. And after that, when more supercar kept on coming every 10 years, we knew that those were competing against each other. For Ferrari, they kind of have been in the habit of launching a car every like 10 years, starting with the F40 and then the F50, the Enzo. Porsche kind of did the same thing with the GT and the 918. McLaren skipped a little bit, but still trying to keep pace. But lately, we haven't seen anything from Porsche. Lamborghini's kind of a bit out of it. They haven't done anything for a while. And lately, they've been doing a lot of one-off cars, like $1 million one-off cars. But everybody's expecting Porsche to go back in the game. So Chris looked into it, and there is actually quite strong history about Porsche doing supercars all over the years. And Chris, why don't you tell us like how this whole thing started and
Yeah.
what they have done for the past like 50 years, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Holy-Trinity conversation has come online once again with the recent introduction of the McLaren W8 and the Ferrari F80 back in just about a month back in October, 9 days apart, in fact. So people are asking, "Oh, what about Porsche?" So I looked up, I mean, some of the Porsche or supercars, halo cars, so to speak. Most of them are, derived from motorsport going back several decades at this point. And through the late 80s, we saw the 959, 87, the Ferrari F50. And with Porsche in specific, I mean, from the 70s, 60s and 70s, you can see the 928, the GTS, the 904 GTS, excuse me, 959, 911 GT1, 917, again, Le Mans hypercars. So people are asking, what's up with Porsche? We haven't really seen anything from the German brand in terms of what they're going to be doing next. We've seen several concept cars in the past decade. The production of the last flagship Halo car from Porsche, which was the 918 Spider, that ended in 2015. So it's been close to 8 to 10 years now, almost. We're in 2025. So production was for 2 years, 2013 to 2015. Porsche made about 918 examples of the 918. But what then? And what since then? So we haven't really heard much apart from a few promising concept cars. We've seen some interesting developments in that direction. I mean, we saw this one, for example, 917 to celebrate 50 years of the 917. Then we saw a virtual concept car with the Vision GT. And since right about the end of the decade, 2020s, we saw Porsche was going more towards the electric based on where the market was headed. They launched the Taycan, and then they made a track only mission R concept that you can see right here, close to over 1,000 horsepower, just to showcase what an all electric hypercar or supercar is kind of capable of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think the Missionary is certainly the closest thing that we have seen since the Porsche 918
yeah,
to be like a supercar. I mean, especially it looked a little bit, in the same kind of inspiration. I think it flowed from the 918 to the Missionary. It would have made complete sense. I mean, we had fantastic shots of all the detail of that car when it was released, and it looks super good. Obviously, we can see on the front fender, very inspired from the Taycan. So they were also trying to push the whole Taycan design language there, and of
yeah.
course trying to make what is the fastest EV they can do. So it looked really good, really promising. I mean, I think it would have made total sense to produce this car, and they would have made like Bandit on this, I'm sure. But for some unknown reason, that car never seen production, and we were really hoping, okay, maybe it's just a matter of time. But the year passed by, and really nothing came about it. So of course 2021, it was the whole COVID situation. So it's possible that this car, was supposed to be, a supercar for sale to the customers, but with the whole COVID stuff, I mean, Porsche was really struggling everywhere, so they may have had to can that project. But you'd think that by now they would be able to just, release it if it was in the plan. But apparently must have never really been the plan, because in 2022 Porsche just came out with a new car, the Mission Concept X. So I mean, Chris, what happened there?
Yeah, so I mean, things finally started to materialize. I mean, the mission art was really kind of a showcase of what's to come, I suppose. I mean, because it didn't really have like a traditional skateboard. It had more of a they kind of tried to replicate the mid-engine layout of a traditional ICE car with the way the placement of the battery pack, etc., which is kind of behind the driver to kind of uh, get that same ICE feeling of a mid-engine halo car that Porsche wants to do, has done for so many years. So the Mission X is kind of an evolution of that, and it came around. It was codenamed the XS23, and development started in 2022, I believe. And for the 75th anniversary of Porsche, they unveiled it last year in June, and we finally got to lay eyes on the spectacular Halo supercars. There's some really nice design details. So you've got a glass canopy and a Daytona window apparently up front on the top. And you also have, if you look closely, the mirrors are actually cameras, but they're behind the windows, the side windows. So some really interesting details. Unfortunately, Porsche did not give much in the name of specifications as to, except for one, which is 1 horsepower per kilogram. So that kind of, we had to speculate on what kind of horsepower this particular all electric hypercar is capable of.
Yeah, I think the car looks like super fantastic. I mean, it looks like the best. That would be the if I had the money, that would be the one car I would buy, because you buy those supercar, hypercar, you kind of always want to buy pretty much a race car.
Yeah,
And I mean, I love the color, the paint it is here, but you paint this white and put a couple of sticker and some tire marks everywhere, and it's gonna look like a straight on race car. So I think it looks absolutely fantastic. And the crazy part is that it happened during the 75th birthday of the brand. So again, you'd really
yeah,
think that this was going to a dealership. But when I saw it, I thought it looked a little bit like the Zonda in the back, and you have the Le Mans
yeah,
prototype headlight. It looks perfect. But also the problem I think that could have been is that at the time they were like merging with Rimac, and they had the Bugatti thing going on again. Not Porsche, but Volkswagen Group was trying to figure out what they were doing with Bugatti. There was an EV Rimac thing situation going on. And to this day, it's very complicated. It's not like they really sold the brand, if I understood, is that they are pretty much sold like almost like 50% of it. So I think they just don't want to manage
yeah,
those projects, those supercar projects. They're gonna be there. They want to participate. They want to benefit from the halo effect of those cars. But I think they just don't want those things to be like playing around in their main office and slow down the sale of the main car. Which again, since COVID, the sales have been absolutely fantastic for them. So I think it makes sense that they are kind of pushing it on the side. But I mean, this one I really, really miss. having it, not having it sold. But actually, Chris mentioned a fun fact about this one, that they were saying that this is the first car they call hypercar instead of
Yeah.
super sports car, which I always have a little bit fun with the hyper thing. But I guess above 1,000 horsepower, that would make sense. But I was joking that it certainly would be hyper price if it was going to be released, because that looks like really, really extremely expensive. Even just the side of those windows and the complication that the doors and all those things are going to be. I mean, that would be pricey. But I think, yeah, it looked pretty fantastic. I mean, you mentioned the 1 horsepower per kilogram again that they wanted to
Yeah.
do. I mean, I think if that would be totally insane. I think they kind of have to, since Rimac and Bugatti have just so much power now. They're all above 1,000 horsepower. I think that's kind of the new standard. So they would have to get there. And I was
Yeah.
joking a little bit that since you can buy a Nissan GTR and modify it and have 1,000 horsepower, I think there's no way around it. They have to make absolutely insane power for those cars. But yeah, I think again we are all speculating. I think my speculation also is why this is not coming today is that the Porsche GT cars are just working so well for Porsche and selling for so much money, especially at the dealership level, because the dealership obviously are making a fortune marking up all the GT cars. So if Porsche corporate office says, "Hey, we're going to have a new hypercar for $1 million," and you're not gonna make any dime on it because we're gonna lose money for every car. Gonna be so excited, really awesome in every angle. Um, I think the big problem when I just try to switch out, unless you have something else, is that the whole powertrain of the EV situation seems to be not a big conundrum for them, because uh, EV are not so hot anymore.
Yeah.
And they even also promised, like I see, like, yeah, they had promised that the car would charge like in 20 minutes or something. I don't even know if that technology actually even exists as far as we know. They haven't even explained exactly how they're gonna make it. So the power seems insane. The whole specification they want is insane, and
Yeah.
and the whole technology behind it sounds wobbly. I don't even know if they can really pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the power figures are concerned, I think most of the EVs or EV hypercars are kind of playing in that between 1,500 to 2,000 horsepower, because even the Plaid and you got things like the Lucid Air, which have well north of 1,000 horsepower these days. So, in order to distinguish themselves and be more extreme, I suppose Porsche will have to play with those higher numbers. And the whole idea with this particular car was that they wanted a production car that can be the ultimate fastest car around the Nürburgring. Right now, the AMG 1 is at 6 minutes 29 seconds. So, uh, hopefully, I mean, if we're saying 1 horsepower per kg, I mean, if we can assume it's around, which is around just over 30 to 3,300 pounds, then based on what we've seen with the Mission R, the Mission X is substantially bigger. So I speculate about 1,700 horsepower
Yeah.
for the Mission X.
Yeah, and I think those are a problem that I think of it about when I think about all those power numbers and the look and stuff. I think there's a problem with the EV of distinction, because when you make a V8, a V6, a turbocharged engine, every brand has their own flavor of it. But as
Yeah,
soon as you start to make electric motors, they're kind of all the same. Sure, you can say that you have special coil in them or whatever, but it's not like people are going to say, hey, the
yeah,
whine of the electric engine is just so, exhilarating. So I think
yeah,
that's why Bugatti, decided to go, okay, let's try to do a high revving, ICE engine in there. Try to give it some character, because the whole EV
yeah,
stuff, I think, is not great. I'm not so sure the Rimac is, such a hot seller. That the look of it,
yeah.
first of all, doesn't look that great. And I think the sales are also not so great. So that's a problem
I
for,
mean,
for those cars.
if you've seen, there's plenty of drag races out there, I think, that you can go check out between the Nevera and the Tesla Model S Plaid, which is already pretty extreme. And the
Yeah.
Nevera is on another level in terms of performance. But I think at that end of the market, I think customers are really looking for an ICE engine. They're
Yeah.
not looking for EVs. But I think time will tell how the market adapts, because there are regulations and rules that would kind of define where the supercar hyper story goes next.
Yeah, yeah. I think the rules and regulation are really the big things here, where everybody kind of had to go to EV, and people saw the marking on the wall. Okay, we're gonna force you to go to EV, but the problem is that it seems like everybody rushed into building those cars, and suddenly they realized that the demand was a lot softer than they were expecting. So they started
Yeah.
to see the number of sales slowing down. So I think I don't know why that would really impact the supercar production, because I don't really care that much about the numbers. But it may again have put things in jeopardy for the Porsche supercar, thinking, well, we're gonna build a supercar saying we are the whole king of electric, when we actually may want to backtrack this a little bit and have EV, but still our Halo supercar needs to be having an ICE engine, internal combustion in there. So that's possible. Now we have Donald Trump in office in the US, where we may
Yeah.
have a lot more lax regulation as well. So we don't know exactly what's going on, but I think you found like two quotes that are also hinting quite hard about the fact that, okay, we're not so sure we're going to produce those cars.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, speaking to the drive, Michael Mauer, who's the Porsche design boss, actually mentioned that, and even the lead project for the Mission X is like we're not really sure this is going to happen. And Michael Mauer specifically said we'll kind of have to adapt based on customer demand. As you mentioned, the demand for EVs has kind of softened a bit, and hybrids are coming back in a big way, which is why, even though the tourbillon happened after the Bugatti Rimac Porsche merger happened in 2021, and most people were kind of speculating how are these two brands going to distinguish themselves. So, is the next Bugatti going to be an EV? And no, Bugatti surprised us with another 16 cylinder instead, not a W16 or V16 this time, but they chose to go with a hybrid route, and it's going to be high revving. So it's kind of going to satisfy that customer, that ultra high net worth customer who's kind of looking for, a visceral soundtrack and stuff like that, the emotional aspect, which I think the Rimac definitely lacks to a certain degree. So I
Yeah.
think Bugatti played it safe out there. And Mate Rimac was kind of an advocate of EVs. I mean, like once he's joined Bugatti, he said, no, the Bugatti deserves an ICE engine.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there's also the problem, obviously, is that again in the Volkswagen group is that they do have Bugatti and they do have Rimac now. So I mean, where is the Porsche place in there? I mean, again, the Bugatti seems to be selling very well. They cost absolutely an insane premium. I mean, I remember when $1 million supercar was like, oh, it's so expensive at the first Bugattis, and now we're talking 4.5 million, which I'm sure maybe
Yeah,
even more than that when you buy the car. So the prices are absolutely insane. I don't know if they make money on those cars, but I mean, it seems like it's pretty much like name your own price. So I think if they wanted to make money on it, they could just name any price, and people are ready to buy them. But yeah, for Porsche, it sounds like either they have not found a reason to make it, or yeah, or it's not interesting for them. But yeah, they have a lot of things going on, so I can really see why they don't want to get there. And yeah, and also I guess if we want to talk a little bit about the competition, I mean, Ferrari, McLaren, they all have gone the hybrid route. I think, as you mentioned, I think it's a key to everybody can do the electric, for better or worse, but they all want to add their own little flavor of
yeah,
engine. Like a Ferrari is at 3 liter with 3 motors, a McLaren you have 4 liter V8. So everybody can find their thing, and then Porsche maybe able to do a flat six with a hybrid, which they are doing in the Porsche GTS. But for the supercar, they could still do something like this
yeah,
obviously in a lot more extreme fashion, and that would make
yeah,
sense. But I don't think that's what they were thinking when they were doing it, like 5 6 years ago, or maybe 7 years ago, when they started to come up with the concept. And
yeah,
we wanted to make it all EV, and then now we realize that we need to go another direction. We need to find a proper engine to differentiate ourselves from the competition. And
yeah.
yeah, that now that can take some time. So it may take a while for them to figure out how to do that, and that's maybe why they're going to be so late to the game.
Yeah, so they've kind of also backtracked on what they said more recently because if you recall, the start of the decade around 2022, they said that, we want to have 80% of Porsche sales coming from electric vehicles But now, a few months ago, they said, the market demand has changed. So we're also going to see if we can kind of include other gas powered models will kind of continue until the end of the decade. And the 911 EV is not even happening this decade. So they've kind of delayed it. They're starting to include more hybrids into the lineup. You can see it across other models like the Macan. I mean, you've got the EV and the gas model selling till 2026 alongside. The Cayenne also till 2020 till 2030, so excuse me, it's going to have the EV is coming, but the ICE and the gas hybrid, they're going to be sticking around. Same for the Panamera as well.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like yeah, they're definitely backtracking. I think that when I was reading an article about, they say okay, they're now trying to think about how they're going to be putting ICE engine back into the electric Boxster. It's so funny.
Yeah,
It's like the whole way around that they were doing ICE car, how to put the EV powertrain in, and now they realized they need to backtrack. I mean, it just sounds like yeah, there's just not enough volume to really sustain completely different line. Maybe outside the SUV because the SUV sell for a lot more, but for the other car, I
yeah,
think it's a little bit of a problem. I mean, for the Macan, or I can see how they can have just two completely different cars because it's such a big seller in terms of volume. But for the other car, it may be a little tough. I think like even all again the quote we have from people around the internal project, we've heard that I think one said like Porsche using the best solution for the time to create the best car. So that's kind of a little bit a boring thing that we are still looking on it. But Michael Bear, we said like only time will tell if the Mission X make it to production. I mean, this to me sounded like really like okay, they have a product, but they're really thinking really long and hard about what they want to do. So
yeah,
whole again look into direction that they may want to backtrack a little bit instead of releasing it, which seems strange to me because if they had the product, I mean, repurposing it sounds like quite an expensive thing to do. But
yeah,
again, maybe they are not forward enough that they still have to launch it. So yeah, I think the hybrid source makes total sense. I think everybody's going that way.
yeah,
And it really featured the best of both worlds. So what I really like is the idea that you brought in about what about putting for the street the 919 street concept that was built back in 2017? So I think this actually is actually a great idea because it looks like it was a big inspiration for the Mission X a few years earlier, and this was actually a hybrid car, right?
yeah, yeah. This was hybrid. It was, as you mentioned, I mean, this is based on the LMP1 race car, but it's kind of been modified. I'm not even sure if it works. I mean, I have seen one video of it with Supercar Blondie where it was shipped out to Dubai and she could actually take a closer look at the car itself. It was not running at the time, but the specifications. I mean, it's got a V4 engine, so four-cylinder, and it has electric motors and it has a combined 900 horsepower output. But the main reason, and I think it was spot on, I don't know why Porsche abandoned it, but they say that it was far too complex to kind of adapt that race car engine for the street. And that's the reason. I
Yeah.
think they got the design spot on. I think this could have been a great successor to the 918 Spider. I think Porsche's natural tendency of thinking at that point was, hey, we did the hybrid, now let's go EV, and which is why they
Yeah.
kind of abandoned. Let's not do another hybrid again. So I suspect that's one of the other reasons why they also said let's just do an EV in 2022. But of course, the market's conditions have changed. But we do have another hybrid. I mean that they could potentially look at bringing back this particular body um, into the conversation again because they already have
Yeah.
something interesting. Yeah,
I think it made sense for them to say, okay, let's try to get on the top of the whole electric bandwagon and get it instead of having something that's a bit long in the tooth like this. I mean, Porsche usually supercar they look like very fast sports car, but they don't look like a pure race car from we play tag, which this really looks. I mean, we don't think again you can do anything, but going in the
yeah,
street and go to a restaurant with this, it really looks a little bit weird, even though I mean we've seen some crazy car for sale there. But I think yeah, adapting something that's totally race based stuff. I mean, I think Aston Martin did it with the Valkyrie there, where I know they have some crazy maintenance program and stuff. But all those cars cost so much money, anyways. I think people are fine with the inconvenience. They're just gonna want to own the car to put it and appreciate every detail and just use it just from time to time for fun. So, but I guess the fun part of this is that to me this really looks like it was converted to an EV for the Mission X, at least from the front, like really really highly inspired. And it would be fun that they have to convert it back to a hybrid car because that's what's actually working. So
Yeah.
I think this package looks fantastic. I would personally, yeah, try to. I think I prefer the Mission X style of it, but I think yeah, making it a hybrid would make a lot more sense. I really like the idea of the V4 hybrid because that way, that may give us an opportunity for a Porsche 911 four-cylinder hybrid because the whole GTS hybrid is nice, but literally people don't even need that much power. So if we could get a lighter car, at least something that weighs the same weight as a current car, but then smaller engine and replace the weight saving with the battery, I think it would make sense. So I think even a smaller engine, I think the technology is
Yeah.
such these days that they can really make some stuff that are super high revving and remain reliable because the technology is just so much better. So I think it would be a great way to move forward. I mean, without having any supercar there in between. Usually they can have a supercar, then they try to pump some technology or some design cues into some kind of the model, the headlight or whatever. And here we've gone a really long time without any of those halo cars pushing anything in there. So it would be interesting to see what's going on in the new Porsche Turbo, but I think it's going to be vastly unrelated. I think we talked about that before. Like most likely will just be a regular turbo, potentially a tiny bit of hybrid there, but I really don't believe about it too much. I think the motorsport version of what Porsche is doing usually is a good inspiration for what could happen in the next car, but I don't know if there's really something they can use at this time in their motorsport program to really bring it into the conversation.
Yeah, so the whole point, I mean, this is speaking of the motorsport version, this is the actual 919 hybrid racer. So you can see the cutaway and like a top view, and you can see the latest T hybrid system in the new GTS. And so I don't know, the T hybrid is the latest in terms of performance hybrid technology from Porsche. So probably a beefed up version of that could kind of fit into the 919 street body chassis or the Mission X. I don't know which body shell they're going to choose, but it could potentially be with probably with two motors. I'm just speculating here. This is completely speculating out here. Probably a beefed up battery pack, something along those lines to kind of fit into that body shell. And I wonder what comes out of it.
Yeah, I mean, again, if
It's
they
going
if
to,
they put smaller engine, maybe they can have something
yeah,
more interesting with more battery space, more range, or something. I mean, they have to come up with something groundbreaking. For me, the only way would be to make a smaller engine that would be kind of crazy fun enough. Let's say something that revs like crazy, like a mini Bugatti thing. Like make a super high revving ICE engine and back it up with a nice hybrid. I think you have the
yeah,
best of both worlds. After that, if people want something that's more drivable and stuff, Porsche has so many cars that people can
yeah.
pick from. I think it was a good move from Aston Martin to do that crazy Valkyrie stuff. I mean, if you're gonna buy a supercar, again, make it really, really special. If not, you can buy a nice, GT3 RS or a Porsche Turbo, or whatever. I think there are plenty of options out there. So I think for the last slides, I mean, I think again we have to keep in mind what's going on still in Europe about the new regulation that are coming in. I think it's a big big problem for Porsche because
Yeah.
if you are producing a small amount of unit like Ferrari or and stuff, you're gonna be have a special exemption. So they're gonna be able to do with the whatever they were doing before. They're still putting hybrid, just I think because they want sense of time, but they don't really have to. The full extent of the rule is not gonna apply to them. But for Porsche, they sell so many cars that they fall the maximum by 2035. So I mean, they really need to make sure they master this in house and they have all the technology in case those rule actually gets into place. With what's happening lately, like in the US and stuff, God knows if those rules really gonna take place. I mean, it's less than 10 years away. So in Europe, I mean, I'm sure they're they're quite afraid of this because if they want to be ready, I mean, 10 years is a short amount of time to get their whole lineup converted pretty much. Like that means in less than 10 years,
Yeah.
Actually in 10 years, they're going to have a Porsche 911 fully electric,
Yeah.
2035. So it's
Yeah.
just 10 years for them to really figure out how that works. So I'm sure they're pretty scared and pretty scrambling there, trying to see what they're gonna do. So as a brand that is producing cars in Europe, I mean, I don't think they're gonna be able to go around it. Maybe if they produce their car in the US and open a factory here in the US,
Yeah.
that may change things. Then there could be maybe some cars that suddenly will be sold in the US and not in Europe. I mean, that could be. So that there's really a lot of things going on, and obviously they want to push EV and they're still at it, but remain to see what exactly is going to happen. But or they could just switch a batch of the 911. I don't know, maybe they call it the Remac 911. They call something different. Maybe if they get it out of the Porsche brand, but no, I'm just joking. No, they have to really work on it. So hopefully the supercars from Porsche will keep on going. I personally, I think the Mission X with a V4 hybrid would be my choice. But we can see here they have a lot of things going on with the EV, the market changing condition. Everybody, all the competition is doing hybrid. So it may be that just they were aiming in the wrong direction and going back and
Yeah.
forth and just taking some delays getting their own car. Or again, just that they're just making so much car with so much money with the GT car that they could really care less about this, and they're just going to let Bugatti and Rimac have that market and let
Yeah.
other manufacturer waste their engineering into producing, 200 or 300 car a year, which is clearly not the goal that Porsche is having right now. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
I mean, I think they were kind of spot on with the 919 Street. I think they really should have developed that. I mean, if they showed it in 2017, I think they could have gone ahead and kind of figured out a way to kind of produce it by 2020. I think then they would have kind of at least launched a successor to the 918. But I think by deciding to go full EV and now the market dynamics have completely changed. I think they're too far in the development cycle with the Mission X to kind of go back and to start from scratch again, because Shimmy 150 or Tim Burton put out a video saying that he thinks it's completely canned altogether, the Mission X. So maybe once, as you mentioned, in the next 10 years, the market completely goes EV and Porsche will have to comply with those emissions regulations in the EU, then probably, yes, there will be an all-electric hypercar as a successor to the 918. But for now, I think the 918 is going to be the top dog. And again, those could again impact valuations and things like that if Porsche is not doing it. So we're probably not going to have a Holy Trinity. And I'd definitely like to know what viewers think is going to happen next.